There is no rush, no edge, no beginning or end. Only the endless, hushed breathing of the cosmos. You're not falling. You're not rising. You are suspended in something deeper than silence, surrounded by a velvet sea speckled with stars that do not twinkle here. They burn with quiet purpose. Galaxies float around you like lanterns loosed on a dark river. They are not static. They are moving, softly, almost imperceptibly. They glide away from each other, not because they choose to, but because something is nudging them gently and relentlessly. A slow, cosmic parting, a hush in motion. This is not the stillness of sleep, but the stillness of scale, so vast, so immense, that even the fastest things feel slow. And within this vastness, you feel it, something unseen, a whisper of motion without touch, a push without wind, a presence without a face. This is dark energy. You don't see it. No one has, but you can feel its imprint in the stars' slow retreat. Imagine two paper boats set on a quiet pond. You push the water around them, and they drift apart, not because the boats know to move, but because the space between them shifts. Dark energy is like that, a reshaping of space itself. Take a breath. Let it out slowly. You are not in a room anymore. You are not on Earth. You are everywhere and nowhere, floating among ancient light. The stars you see are old. Their light has been traveling toward you for billions of years, threading its way through a fabric that's quietly stretching. The farther the light has to travel, the more it stretches too, like taffy pulled between fingers. It reddens, softens, slows. Astronomers call this redshift. You, lying in stillness, feel like a sigh in time. You wonder, what is stretching space? What breath fills the lungs of the universe? No one knows for sure. But dark energy seems to fill the gaps between galaxies, gently prying them apart. Not with force, but with invitation. Not with violence, but inevitability. Like fog lifting off a lake, like sleep tugging at your eyes. And here's the mystery. There's more of it than anything else. More than the stars, more than the planets, more than the dust and light and heat. This invisible force makes up nearly 70% of the universe. A ghost in the equation, a breath we can't catch, but one that moves everything. You feel small, yes, but not in a way that frightens, in a way that comforts. Because even your smallness is part of the movement, part of the same hush that guides galaxies. You are not outside of it. You are folded into its rhythm. Close your eyes. Imagine the early universe, young, dense, and hot. Galaxies still close together, like seeds tucked into dark soil. At first, gravity wins. It pulls matter inward, builds stars, forms clusters, sculpts the sky. But over time, something changes. The expansion begins to speed up, not slow down, speed up, as though the universe decides to stretch its limbs wider, reaching out into silence. This accelerating expansion is the first clue. Dark energy isn't just there. It grows more powerful with time. The more space there is, the more room it fills, and the more it fills, the more it stretches. You're riding that stretch now, gently, endlessly. If you could wait forever, you'd see galaxies drift farther and farther away until their light fades beyond sight. One day, the night sky will grow emptier, not because the stars go out, but because their light can no longer reach us. But that day is not today. Tonight, you're surrounded by stars that still speak. Their whispers are redshifted, softened by the breath of space. But they're still here, still singing. You imagine the universe as a soft balloon, not made of rubber, but of time and space itself. The more it expands, the thinner it feels. And at its edges, if such things exist, dark energy is an invisible hand that continues to open outward. Is a force, a field, a property of space? You don't know. No one does. But here, in the stillness between stars, you don't need to define it. You only need to feel it. A gentle stretching, like your chest rising with breath. A drift between distant lights. And if the galaxies are drifting like lanterns, then what are their stories? What happens to the messages carried by light once they're stretched too thin? Does the universe forget, or does it remember in softer tones? You breathe in that question. Let it settle like stardust in your chest. This drifting, this cosmic motion, is not random. It's part of something larger. And tonight, you are floating inside it. A quiet push, a soft tug, a presence you cannot see, but one that holds everything in its gentle expansion. And so you ask yourself, if the space between things grows, then what holds it all together? Chapter 3. Einstein's whispering you float, still weightless in the dark, carried by a current you cannot feel. There's no wind, no direction, no edge to brush against. And yet something is changing. Something quiet and slow. Not around you, between things. Look at the stars again. They don't rush. They don't tumble through space like stones flung from a sling. Instead, the space between them opens, soft, stretching gradual. Not a chase, but a separation. Not the stars that move apart, but the distance between them growing. It's easy to picture stars as travelers, racing away into the void. But that isn't quite true. They're not moving through space. It is space itself that's expanding, unfurling like cloth, thread by invisible thread. You imagine a grid, soft and infinite, a fine, delicate weave like silk under a microscope, each crossing thread, a galaxy, each knot, a cluster. At first, they lie close together, pressed into a compact form. But something pulls gently at the fabric. Slowly, it begins to stretch. And as it stretches, the knots drift apart. Not because they crawl across the threads, but because the threads themselves grow longer. It's not a tearing. It's not a snap. It's an unfolding, like the petals of flower at sunrise or the breath of a newborn universe learning how to exhale. You float within this unfolding. The stars that once sat side by side now whisper across light years. Galaxies that shared a close beginning now speak across silences grown wider with every passing moment. Not with words, with light, but that light carries the echo of distance. And as you float, you feel time soften. Because time and space are not separate here. They are part of the same fabric, stretching together. As space unfolds, so too does time. Every second now is longer than the last, as if the universe were pausing to savor each breath. You may wonder, how can we know space is expanding if we cannot see it with our eyes? Astronomers don't see the fabric, but they listen for its song, a cosmic melody played in light. Light from distant galaxies arrives redder than it should be, not because the galaxies glow red, but because their light has been stretched during the journey. Redshift, they call it. A soft pull on every wave of light, stretching it like music slowed down. The farther the galaxy, the more stretched its light becomes. And from that, we understand space itself is growing. But how can space grow? Grow into what? There's no outside of the universe, no wall to press against, no sky behind the stars. Expansion isn't about moving into something else. It's about more space coming into being between the things already there, like a dream that grows larger the longer you sleep. There is no center, no anchor point. Everywhere is expanding, and that means you, too, are part of the stretch, not pulled apart, not broken, but carried gently outward by something deep and quiet. You try to picture it, a balloon inflating, dots drawn on its surface, moving apart as the rubber stretches. But even that doesn't quite capture it, because a balloon has an edge and the universe does not. The universe stretches within itself. It's not just galaxies moving apart. It's the distance between all things getting wider, like breath held longer, like pauses deepening in a song. Even the photons, those tiny particles of light, feel the strain, their steps drawn longer and slower by the stretch. This expansion began long ago, 13.8 billion years in your past. At first, it was furious, an explosion not of matter, but of space itself. Then it slowed, as gravity began to pull on the newly formed matter. But something happened, something quiet, invisible. Not only did the expansion not stop, it began to speed up again. That's when the mystery deepened. Because nothing we could see, not stars, not gas, not galaxies, could explain this accelerated stretch. There was something else in the mix, something woven into the fabric itself. Dark energy, You cannot see it, but you can feel its influence, like a tide beneath the surface, pulling on everything gently, endlessly. It is not energy in a way you know, not warmth, not light. It does not power machines or fires or stars. It powers the distance between. And the more the universe expands, the more room there is for dark energy to operate. It does not thin out. It stays constant everywhere. And so, as galaxies drift farther apart, dark energy stretches a fabric even more, a loop of motion with no end. You lie there, wrapped in thought, and feel the soft pull between the stars. Not a wind, not a sound, just the growing quiet between ancient lights. One day, if this stretching continues, and it seems it will, the night sky will change. The stars will recede until they are too far to see. Galaxies will disappear beyond the reach of any telescope. Even their light will no longer be able to catch up, but that day is far away. For now, the stars still shine, still call to each other across the cosmic sea, and you are here to listen, to breathe with them. There is something tender about old ideas. They don't vanish. They linger quietly in the margins of thought, in the background of equations, like a forgotten melody that still hums beneath a new song. And in the gentle unfolding of the cosmos, one such idea comes back softly, like the hush of a voice you almost forgot. It belongs to Albert Einstein. Tonight, as you float through the deep quiet of space, you feel the presence not of a person, but of a question, still breathing, still waiting. Einstein once asked it under a different sky. Back then, telescopes hadn't yet revealed the expanding universe. Back then, the stars were thought to sit still, fixed in their positions, like ornaments on an eternal fabric. Einstein's equations, his deep, beautiful mathematics, told a different story. They suggested motion. They hinted that the universe couldn't simply be static, but the world around him said otherwise. So he did something strange. He added a new term to his equations, a gentle pressure, not to cause movement, but to stop it. He called it the cosmological constant. It was like placing a fingertip on a vibrating string, just to hush the note. A small force, not too loud, not too wild, meant to balance the tug of gravity, to keep the stars where they were. You imagine him scribbling in soft lamplight, the curve of a symbol beneath his pen, and the silence of that moment, the pause in the music of the universe. This constant lambda, a single Greek letter, was his way of keeping the cosmos calm, a mathematical hush. But the universe didn't stay silent. Decades later, telescopes whispered a new truth. Galaxies weren't just sitting still. They were drifting apart. The space between them was growing, stretching outward like the slow bloom of a flower. The universe was expanding, not just moving, accelerating. Einstein, upon hearing this, is said to have called his constant the greatest blunder of his life. But tonight, in the hush of space, you wonder if it was really a mistake, because something still seems to be there, a pressure, faint but steady, a rhythm in the fabric of the cosmos. The cosmological constant has returned. Only now it wears a new name, a name stitched to something more mysterious. Dark energy. You think of it not as a force, but as a whisper in the weave of reality, nudging galaxies apart with quiet insistence, not rushing, not tearing, just breathing, expanding. What Einstein once used to still the universe may now explain why it does the opposite. Isn't it strange? The thing meant to keep everything in place now helps everything drift apart. Balance becomes movement. Stillness becomes flight. The constant that once held the universe still might be the same one, helping it stretch into something more. You float gently in the dark, feeling the equations of space around you, not as numbers, but as patterns in a quiet wind. You don't need to understand them fully. Just listen. They murmur softly in the currents of creation. Lambda, the cosmological constant, is still there in the math, not as a mistake, but maybe as a message, a reminder that sometimes, even most brilliant minds can underestimate the stillness they try to hold. And perhaps, in the soft tug of galaxies, and the widening space between stars. That message is still unfolding. You exhale slowly. The universe does too. In and out, drifting, expanding, not in chaos, but in rhythm, as if something beneath everything, some unseen breath, is guiding it outward. You're not falling. You're floating on a thought, carried by a constant that once sought balance and found beauty instead. And just as the idea of lambda once slipped away and returned, you sense that there are other forces, other whispers, that shape the universe. Something deeper still might be at play. A question more ancient than Einstein's equations, waiting behind the veil of expansion. What is this dark energy? That wears the mask of a constant? Is it truly constant at all? Or is it something changing, evolving, shifting in the dark, just beyond what we can see? The night is quiet again. You float weightlessly through a sky so vast there's no center, no top, no bottom, no walls. There is no up here and nothing to lean against, just distance, deep and unending. In the darkness, stars blink like the slow breathing of a sleeping world. Galaxies hover like lanterns, soft spirals of light, strewn across a velvet sea. You feel small but not lost. You are carried. As you drift, you notice something strange. The galaxies around you are pulling away. They do not rush or flee. They simply recede, not because they're moving through space, but because space itself is gently stretching. It's not motion the way a car moves or a wave travels. It's more like the quiet tug of a balloon inflating, every point growing farther from every other, not from any center, but from every place at once. You breathe with it. In and out, space breathes too. Long ago, someone looked into the sky with wonder and noticed this quiet drift. Edwin Hubble, a man with a telescope, peering into the mystery. He didn't know what he would find. He only knew the stars whispered something strange. When he measured the light from distant galaxies, he saw it redden, stretched like the last note of a fading song. Light, like sound, changes as it moves. A train passing by grows higher as it comes, lower as it leaves. So too with galaxies. Their light shifts red as they drift farther from us. But it wasn't just one or two. It was all of them. Everywhere he looked, the same pattern emerged. Distant galaxies receding, their glow stretched thin by expanding space. The discovery was quiet, but it changed everything. You imagine Hubble on a clear night, standing alone on a mountain, the telescope cool against his cheek, the stars sharp and still above him. And yet behind that stillness, motion, a truth hidden in slowness. The universe wasn't steady. It was growing. It was as if the fabric of space were unfolding, not all at once, not with violence, but with deep, patient insistence, like bread rising, like ink slowly seeping across water, like time itself. Before Hubble, we thought the universe was a grand stage, fixed, eternal, holding the actors of stars and planets. But now, the stage itself was moving, the floor beneath our feet expanding, everywhere, always. There was no edge to run toward, no center to return from. It was not that galaxies moved through a static space. It was that space itself was moving, and everything within it simply followed. This wasn't speed, it was separation, not driven by engines or explosions, but by the gentle rule of the cosmos. And still, you wonder what makes the fabric stretch. What wind blows through the folds of space, pushing the galaxies apart. You remember from earlier, Einstein's whisper, the cosmological constant, a quiet term added to his equations, like a breath he could not explain. At the time, he thought it was wrong. But Hubble's discovery gave that whisper a shape. The term returned, reborn in the dance of receding galaxies. Now, scientists call this expansion cosmic inflation, or dark energy when they speak of its persistence. But words cannot hold it completely. It is something deep beyond labels, an unseen, patient expansion that has shaped the universe since time began. You picture the universe as a great canvas, and each galaxy as a tiny dot of paint. Over time, the canvas stretches in every direction. The dots move apart, but not because they choose to. It is the space between them that grows. And you are floating within that canvas now, drifting in the rhythm of expansion. The silence is not empty. It holds a story, the story of space growing itself. You pass clusters of galaxies, like cities in the sky. Some are close together, like neighbors. Others are so distant, their light takes billions of years to arrive. Light, that most tireless traveler, is slowed only by distance. And now you see that distance is always changing. The farther a galaxy is, the faster it seems to flee, not because it's racing away, but because there's more space between you, more fabric to stretch. It's like watching people walk across an escalator that's expanding beneath them. Their steps are steady, but the space grows faster the farther you look. And so, the night becomes a map not of roads, but of time itself. Because when you look far enough into space, you're also looking back into history. Light is slow compared to time. The stars you see now shimmer as they were long ago. The further out you look, the deeper you peer into the past. The galaxies at the edge of your vision are not just distant in space. They are distant in time. You are seeing them as they once were, younger, smaller, closer. You are watching the universe grow. And now, a realization settles gently in your thoughts. Expansion is not just something that happened long ago. It is happening now, around you, within you. The same quiet unfolding continues. Your very atoms ride the wave of space growing wider. You imagine the Earth, small and steady, tucked into a gentle curve of the Milky Way. Around it, the solar system orbits in calm spirals. But beyond it, the galaxies drift, not away from Earth, not towards something else, just away from each other, equally, patiently. You realize now that the universe has no edge, just more space, more time, more possibility. The balloon does not pop. It keeps expanding. Even as it cools, even as its stars burn low, you wonder, will it expand forever? Will the stars one day become so distant that their light can no longer reach us? Will the sky grow dark not from nightfall, but from distance? The questions echo, not with urgency, but with awe. For now you drift, softly, peacefully. Above you, stars. Below you, galaxies. And around you, the quiet breath of the cosmos. Stretching, always, you exhale. And in that exhale, you hear a question forming. Not in words, but in wonder. You are floating in a calm sea of starlight, where galaxies drift like lanterns on water. Everything around you is moving, graceful, deliberate, vast. But as you drift deeper into the night of the cosmos, a quiet question begins to rise like mist around you. Why is everything moving away from everything else? Why is space itself stretching? It is not a wind you can feel. It is not a tide you can see, but it is there. Long ago, the universe was smaller, tighter, warmer. Galaxies were neighbors, close and familiar. But as time passed, space began to grow. Not like a balloon filling with air, but more like the spaces between things expanding, making room for more distance. At first, this expansion was expected. The Big Bang gave the cosmos a push, a grand beginning. The universe should have been slowing down ever since, like a stone tossed into the sky. But something unexpected happened. Astronomers, studying distant stars known as Type I supernovae, brilliant explosions that serve as cosmic lighthouses, discovered something strange. The light from these stars wasn't just far. It was farther than it should be. The universe wasn't slowing down. It was speeding up. This revelation fell over the scientific world like snow on a quiet forest. It muffled our understanding and reshaped the path of cosmic thought. Whatever was causing this acceleration had no name. It couldn't be seen. It gave off no light, no sound, no heat. It didn't clump like matter. It didn't flow like radiation. So we called it dark energy. You feel it now not as a thing, but as a tendency, a whisper in the fabric of reality that says, grow. Imagine stretching a sheet of soft fabric in every direction at once. Not because you pull the edges, but because the threads themselves want to separate. That is what dark energy does to space. It makes the space between galaxies widen, silently, steadily, inexorably. You can't hold it in your hands. It doesn't sit inside particles or ripple like waves. And yet, it makes up nearly 70% of everything. You are living in a universe ruled mostly by something we do not understand. Let that thought rest with you. The stars you see above, the ones that glimmer like frost on the dome of night, they are only the smallest part of what exists. The atoms that make your body, your breath, your heartbeat, your dreams, they are a fraction of the cosmos. Even dark matter, invisible and ghostly though it is, makes up less than dark energy. What is it? You may wonder. A force? A field? A property of the vacuum itself? Some scientists think dark energy might be a kind of energy woven into the very nature of empty space, a cosmological constant, as Einstein once proposed and later doubted, like a pressure inside the void that never fades. Imagine a balloon that expands not because air is blown into it, but because the rubber itself wants to swell. That's one idea. Others believe dark energy may not be constant at all. Perhaps it changes with time, shifts with the shape of the cosmos. Perhaps it's the whisper of an unknown particle or the signature of a fifth force beyond gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear bonds. Perhaps it is something we have not yet imagined, waiting at the edge of understanding, like a shadow just beyond the campfire light. You walk slowly through this field of thought, your bare feet pressing gently into the soft sand of wonder. The beach stretches infinitely in both directions. The ocean of space laps gently at the shore. Behind you, the galaxies of yesterday. Ahead, the future, uncertain, expanding, pulled by the quiet thread of dark energy. Even now, as you lie beneath the stars, the universe is growing, not just in size, but in distance. Galaxies not bound to each other by gravity are slipping away, like petals floating on a widening pond. One day, far in the future, distant galaxies will vanish from sight altogether, not because they move, but because the space between you and them grows faster than light can cross it. You might ask, will the universe stretch forever? Will galaxies be torn apart? Will atoms be undone by the very expansion that now seems so gentle? Some theories suggest a fate called the Big Rip, a distant future where even the smallest structures of matter are peeled apart by runaway expansion. Others imagine the acceleration slowing, stopping, perhaps even reversing one day into a collapse. But for now, all signs point to eternal growth, a slow, relentless bloom of space into silence. You close your eyes and imagine dark energy not as a monster, but as a gardener, not violent, not cruel, only patient. It pulls gently, like the moon pulls the tides. It shapes the future not with a shout, but with a sigh. You don't feel it in your bones or in your breath, but its presence wraps around every galaxy, every void, every atom. It is a quiet reason why night is never still. In this expanding universe, you are not separate from the mystery. You carry it with you, always, in your questions, in your awe, in the way you look up at the stars and wonder. You have wandered far, and yet the trail only grows wider. Dark energy has no edges, no borders. It is the ink on the paper of the cosmos, invisible, yet writing every chapter forward. And as you float on this cosmic sea, you begin to wonder, if dark energy is stretching the universe, what happens to gravity, the great gatherer, the cosmic weaver? You are floating in a calm sea of starlight, where galaxies drift like lanterns on water. Everything around you is moving, graceful, deliberate, vast. But as you drift deeper into the night of the cosmos, a quiet question begins to rise like mist around you. Why is everything moving away from everything else? Why is space itself stretching? It is not a wind you can feel. It is not a tide you can see, but it is there. Long ago, the universe was smaller, tighter, warmer. Galaxies were neighbors, close and familiar. But as time passed, space began to grow, not like a balloon filling with air, but more like the spaces between things expanding, making room for more distance. At first, this expansion was expected. The Big Bang gave the cosmos a push, a grand beginning. The universe should have been slowing down ever since, like a stone tossed into the sky. But something unexpected happened. Astronomers, studying distant stars known as Type I supernovae, brilliant explosions that serve as cosmic lighthouses, discovered something strange. The light from these stars wasn't just far. It was farther than it should be. The universe wasn't slowing down. It was speeding up. This revelation fell over the scientific world like snow on a quiet forest. It muffled our understanding and reshaped the path of cosmic thought. Whatever was causing this acceleration had no name. It couldn't be seen. It gave off no light, no sound, no heat. It didn't clump like matter. It didn't flow like radiation. So we called it dark energy. You feel it now, not as a thing, but as a tendency, a whisper in the fabric of reality that says, grow. Imagine stretching a sheet of soft fabric in every direction at once. Not because you pull the edges, but because the threads themselves want to separate. That is what dark energy does to space. It makes the space between galaxies widen, silently, steadily, inexorably. You can't hold it in your hands. It doesn't sit inside particles or ripple like waves. And yet, it makes up nearly 70% of everything. You are living in a universe ruled mostly by something we do not understand. Let that thought rest with you. The stars you see above, the ones that glimmer like frost on the dome of night, they are only the smallest part of what exists. The atoms that make your body, your breath, your heartbeat, your dreams, they are a fraction of the cosmos. Even dark matter, invisible and ghostly though it is, makes up less than dark energy. What is it? You may wonder. A force? A field? A property of the vacuum itself? Some scientists think dark energy might be a kind of energy woven into the very nature of empty space, a cosmological constant, as Einstein once proposed and later doubted, like a pressure inside the void that never fades. Imagine a balloon that expands not because air is blown into it, but because the rubber itself wants to swell. That's one idea. Others believe dark energy may not be constant at all. Perhaps it changes with time, shifts with the shape of the cosmos. Perhaps it's the whisper of an unknown particle or the signature of a fifth force beyond gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear bonds. Perhaps it is something we have not yet imagined, waiting at the edge of understanding. Like a shadow just beyond the campfire light, you walk slowly through this field of thought, your bare feet pressing gently into the soft sand wonder. The beach stretches infinitely in both directions. The ocean of space laps gently at the shore. Behind you, the galaxies of yesterday. Ahead, the future, uncertain, expanding, pulled by the quiet thread of dark energy. Even now, as you lie beneath the stars, the universe is growing. Not just in size, but in distance. Galaxies not bound to each other by gravity are slipping away, like petals floating on a widening pond. One day, far in the future, distant galaxies will vanish from sight altogether, not because they move, but because the space between you and them grows faster than light can cross it. You might ask, will the universe stretch forever? Will galaxies be torn apart? Will atoms be undone by the very expansion that now seems so gentle? Some theories suggest a fate called the Big Rip, a distant future where even the smallest structures of matter are peeled apart by runaway expansion. Others imagine the acceleration slowing, stopping, perhaps even reversing one day into a collapse. But for now, all signs point to eternal growth, a slow, relentless bloom of space into silence. You close your eyes and imagine dark energy not as a monster, but as a gardener, not violent, not cruel, only patient. It pulls gently, like the moon pulls the tides. It shapes the future not with a shout, but with a sigh. You don't feel in your bones or in your breath, but its presence wraps around every galaxy, every void, every atom. It is a quiet reason why night is never still. In this expanding universe, you are not separate from the mystery. You carry it with you, always, in your questions, in your awe, in the way you look up at the stars and wonder. You have wandered far, and yet the trail only grows wider. Dark energy has no edges, no borders. It is the ink on the paper of the cosmos, invisible, yet writing every chapter forward. And as you float on this cosmic sea, you begin to wonder, if dark energy is stretching the universe, what happens to gravity, the great gatherer, the cosmic weaver? You are floating again, weightless and silent, in a cosmos that expands not with a whisper, but with a deep and rising breath. The galaxies around you are not still. They move outward, faster and faster, as if space itself has caught a rhythm that cannot be slowed. You reach for a familiar point of light. It glows, distant and steady. But even as you stretch toward it, the light slips farther away. Not because it moves, but because the space between you and it expands. And the pace of that expansion is rising. This is not a steady drift. It is acceleration. It is a runaway. The cosmos is like a balloon inflating in your hands. But now, the inflation quickens. What once grew gently now grows with urgency. The fabric of space stretches not by your will, nor by gravity's tug, but by something deeper, something beneath, dark energy. It does not pulse or crash. It doesn't flicker or surge, but it builds. Its pressure is quiet, constant, and everywhere. It doesn't gather. It doesn't clump. And so, it slips through your fingers and through equations alike, but its effect cannot be denied. It pushes galaxies apart at growing speeds, like autumn leaves caught not in a lazy breeze, but in a rising storm. You drift alongside a spiral galaxy, its arms curling like frozen waves. A billion suns shine there, each with its own story. But the galaxy is no longer anchored to its neighbors. It is part of a grand migration, not toward something, but away from everything else. This acceleration will continue, unless something we don't yet understand stops it. And if it does continue, the universe will change in quiet, profound ways. Look ahead. The stars that now scatter across the night, like diamonds tossed on velvet, many of them will vanish from view, not because they die, but because the space between you and them will grow too wide, too fast, for their light to ever reach you. One by one, they will slip below the cosmic horizon, a point of no return, not for them, but for you. The universe, still infinite, will seem smaller, lonelier, dimmer. The sky of tomorrow will carry fewer stories. You lie back and feel the acceleration like a current beneath a boat, not violent, but unstoppable. In the far, far future, only the galaxies bound by gravity, those closest to one another, will remain in contact. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is slowly spiraling toward a dance with its neighbor Andromeda. They will merge into one, perhaps called Milkomeda, a single island of stars adrift in growing darkness. Around that island, emptiness will stretch farther and farther. Other galaxies, once visible, will be gone from sight and reach. The universe, so full of connection now, will fall into solitude. You wonder, will future observers, perhaps beings unlike anything we imagine, look up and see only a single galaxy? Will they think that's all there ever was? That the universe begins and ends with them? It is a strange kind of forgetting, not in the mind, but in the sky itself. And still, the acceleration continues. You might picture the universe as a great symphony, swelling and shifting through time. The early notes were loud and fiery. The Big Bang, the birth of light, the chorus of stars. But now, in the later movements, the tempo rises quietly. The rhythm of expansion outpaces the gravity of gathering. Time, too, stretches with space. The clocks still tick, but the seconds between galaxies lengthen. It is not just distance that grows, it is experience, possibility, isolation. In this future, the last stars will burn slowly, quietly. Red dwarf will flicker for trillions of years. White dwarf will cool to black. Neutron stars will spin down, like tops running out of motion. Even black holes will evaporate, a whisper at a time, into the cold. This is not a death, but a transformation. The runaway universe does not end in flame. It ends in quiet, a silence so complete it becomes its own kind of music, the stillness after all the songs are sung. But this is not yet our world. You are here now, and the sky is still full. The galaxies still whisper across light years. The stars still cast shadows. There's still time. Still time to wonder, to explore, to learn. Still time to feel the tug of gravity. Because even now, as the universe expands, there are places where gravity holds on, where it fights back, gently but persistently, against the stretch. Like your Earth, wrapped close to its sun. Like stars huddled in clusters. Like galaxies pulling on one another across space. Gravity has not given up. Not yet. And so you turn your attention to it, this ancient, binding force that keeps your feet on the ground and the moon in the sky. You wonder, how does gravity resist the ever-growing pull of dark energy? What stories lie in its gentle strength? What shapes does it sculpt, even in a universe set to fly apart? You drift in the soft dark of the universe, where silence has a texture and light feels ancient. Around you, stars bloom and fade like embers on a windless night. Some burn steadily, but others end in brilliance, flaring briefly, powerfully, before fading into silence. These are supernovae, not just endings, but beacons, bright flashes that outshine galaxies for a breath of time. And in those breaths, the universe reveals its rhythm. You float beside one now, a Type Ia supernova, a special kind of stellar farewell. It erupts not from a massive star dying young, but from a quiet white dwarf in a binary dance. Over time, this small, dense star pulls matter from its companion, growing heavier, more unstable. When it crosses a threshold, it explodes in perfect, predictable light. That predictability is the gift. Because every Type Ia supernova shines with nearly the same intrinsic brightness, it becomes a kind of cosmic candle, a standard candle. And like candles carried down a long hallway, their dimness tells you how far they've gone. The fainter the flame, the farther away. It's through these fading fires that scientists began to see something unexpected. Supernovae weren't just far. They were too far. As if space itself had stretched faster than it should have. You picture this trail of supernovae like footsteps in the snow, each one marking a moment in time, a distance traveled. And as you follow them back, the space between the prints widens, not steadily but with acceleration. Something invisible was pushing the universe apart. That something you now know is dark energy. But how do you measure the unmeasurable? You can't put dark energy in a box or reflect it off a mirror. But you can see its effects in how galaxies recede, in how light stretches, in how time itself bends. You feel this stretching in the glow of ancient stars. Their light arrives redder than it left, pulled by the expanding space it traveled through. This redshift is not a sound, not a color shift you notice with the eye, but a kind of cosmological whisper. The more the universe expands, the more the light is stretched. Astronomers use this redshift as a ruler. Paired with the brightness of a supernova, it becomes a map of time, a map of space, a map of change. The deeper you look into the cosmos, the farther back in time you peer. The night sky becomes a time machine, and the past unfolds like pages in reverse. Galaxies appear younger, more crowded. Expansion was slower then, but gradually, imperceptibly, it began to speed up. And this story, told in pinpricks of fading light, reshapes our understanding. To trace it more clearly, scientists turn to other tools. You drift now through the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang. It is not hot anymore, but it is everywhere, a gentle, cold murmur from the dawn of time. Imprinted on it are patterns, like ripples frozen in ice, from the earliest moments of the universe's life. These ripples tell us about the ingredient of the cosmos, how much matter, how much dark matter, and how much dark energy. They help measure not just where the universe is, but where it has been. You imagine this data not as numbers, but as music. Each measurement a note, each note a clue to the shape of the song. Dark energy plays a slow, rising chord beneath the rest, quiet, but undeniable. Next, your thoughts drift to baryon acoustic oscillations. Gentle pulses of pressure left over from when the universe was a hot plasma. They've left behind a signature, like concentric rings in the distribution of galaxies. These rings, too, act as cosmic yardsticks. They mark distances in the sky, stretching more as the universe expands faster. It's a tapestry of signs, Not direct views of dark energy, but echoes, shadows, and footprints. You don't see the wind, but you see the leaves it moves. And the patterns continue. From gravitational lensing, where gravity bends light like a glass curve, to the clustering of galaxies across time, everything whispers the same quiet truth. Dark energy is real, it is dominant, and it is accelerating. But still, no one knows what it is. You lie there, surrounded by data dressed in stars, and realize science is often like this, measuring the invisible by trusting the visible, looking not for the thing itself, but for how it makes the world move. It is a form of listening, of patient seeing, of gentle deduction, and this is where the beauty lies. You don't need to touch dark energy to know it's there. Its presence is written in the light of dying stars, in the cool glow of ancient photons, in the way galaxies retreat like dreams at dawn. You feel a kind of reverence for this mystery, not a frustration, but a peace. There's wonder in what we do not yet grasp. There's poetry in uncertainty. And yet, with every new supernova, every new satellite, every deep sky survey, we draw the edges of understanding just a little wider. The invisible becomes outlined, if not illuminated. You close your eyes, feeling how much of science is this, asking, measuring, waiting, listening. And as the universe expands, so too does your sense of what can be known. Not all at once, but layer by layer, like waves brushing against a quiet shore. You wonder, if we can measure dark energy from across billions of light years, what else might we measure and feel? From afar, what forces shape not just the universe, but you? You lie in a cradle of starlight, wrapped in the hush of ancient distances. The night around you feels wide and patient. The sky above stretched so thin it trembles. The galaxies are still drifting. No, accelerating, carried on a wind of expansion that you cannot feel but know is there. And now, a question stirs. Where is this all going? What lies at the end of a universe that won't stop growing? What becomes of stars, of time, of space itself, if this quiet, invisible push, this dark energy continues or worsens? You are floating through futures, not one, but many, each possibility a path the cosmos may one day take. Each one traced not in myth, but in math. Possibility one, the big freeze. You begin with a quiet end, the most accepted vision. In this future, dark energy remains steady, not rising, not fading, just silently stretching space more and more over time. Galaxies, like islands, float farther apart until each becomes marooned in night. Stars still burn, but only for so long. The bright blue giants will go first, flaring out in a few million years. Then the sun-like stars, slower to burn, will follow. And finally, the red dwarfs, the most patient of them all, will glow for trillions of years before blinking out. The universe will grow dim. No new stars will form. No galaxies will meet. Black holes will remain, the last keepers of mass, until they too slowly dissolve, evaporating through quantum whispers. And then only cold. The fabric of space remains, but it is silent. Nothing moves. Nothing shines. A universe not destroyed, but exhausted. Not collapsed, not torn, just finished. You drift deeper, and another vision emerges. Possibility two, the big rip. Here, dark energy doesn't stay constant. It grows, gently at first, a stronger pull, a stronger stretch. But as time passes, the strength compounds. It accelerates expansion faster and faster, until it can no longer be ignored. First, galaxies are pushed beyond reach. Then stars are torn from their galaxies. Then planets from stars. And then, closer, the gravity that holds the Earth together is overpowered. The bonds between atoms begin to loosen. Even the nucleus, even the very building blocks of matter, are unraveled. Space doesn't simply grow. It shreds, not with fire or explosion, but with an invisible pull that tears every connection. And it all ends not in cold silence, but in a final instant, a universal sigh pulled into nothingness. You pause here, quiet. The thought lingers like a breath held too long. But there is another future. Possibility three, the big crunch. This is a reversal. Not all scientists agree on it, but it's a path still whispered in the folds of theory. What if dark energy is not forever? What if its strength fades, like a tide that goes out farther than expected, but then returns? In this case, gravity, long weakened, gathers itself again. Slowly at first, the expansion slows, stops, reverses. Galaxies begin to fall back toward one another. The night sky grows crowded once more. Star clusters merge. Black holes collide. The cosmos folds back in. Space contracts. Heat rises. Density increases. The universe, once frozen, begins to boil. And in the final moments, everything returns to one. Not an explosion, but an implosion. A fiery compression into a single point, echoing the beginning. A possible prelude to another birth. A cycle. A breath in, a breath out. You feel the rhythm in your chest. But there is one more vision, delicate, strange, beautiful. Possibility for the eternal stretch. This is not destruction, not collapse, not even silence. It is something slower than silence, something like unending. In this version, dark energy doesn't destroy or vanish. It simply continues. A steady, eternal push. Galaxies fade beyond view. Stars die. Time stretches. But space itself goes on blooming. A flower that never closes. Eventually, the distances between particles become so vast that interactions cease. Physics, as we know it, slows. Entropy becomes a ruler of everything. Even time loses meaning. Not because it ends, but because there is nothing left to measure it by. The cosmos drifts into a kind of soft abstraction. Not a place, not a temperature, not a shape, just being stretched to the point of unrecognizability. You float here for a while, not afraid, just wondering what it means for something to go on forever, but change so completely that it becomes something else. You are surrounded by futures. They fold over you like dreams. They echo in numbers and equations, but also in feeling, in longing, in awe. And even if the future cannot be known, it can be imagined. It can be traced like your finger through water, leaving ripples of thought behind. So much depends on dark energy, on how it behaves, on whether it stays constant or shifts or reveals something new altogether. You realize gently that the universe's fate is not a single point waiting in the distance, but a path that unfolds from the fabric of the now. It's in the stars that explode, in the galaxies that drift, in the space that hums quietly beneath it all. And somewhere, hidden in all this possibility, is the question you didn't know you were waiting for. Why is there something instead of nothing? You feel it forming, like a note held softly at the end of the song, a whisper in the widening dark that invites you forward, into the mystery of beginnings. You lie in the quiet curve of space, suspended in a thought too vast for words. Around you, the universe stretches outward, its fabric pulled by dark energy, its galaxies drifting like lanterns in wind. But now, the question isn't about distance or time. It is something softer, stranger, personal. You wonder, is the universe thinking? The stars shimmer like neurons in a sleeping brain, and for a moment, you feel like a thought inside something larger than yourself, a ripple of reflection in a sea of silence. It starts with you. You are made of atoms, each atom forged in stars, scattered by explosions, gathered into patterns that feel and dream and remember. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are its echo, a structure made not just of matter, but of questions. And your questions reach far, not just into the past, where light from ancient galaxies still travels toward you, but into the mystery of what it all means. You consider your own thoughts, their weightlessness, their electricity. They fire like starlight across the networks of your mind, carrying meaning, memory, and wonder. Thought arises from connection, from complexity, from pattern. Could the universe, vast and structured, be having thoughts too? You drift inward now, toward Earth, toward biology, toward the brain. Your brain, a lattice of neurons, each sparking and pausing in harmony. It is not the parts that think, but the patterns between them. In the same way, galaxies are not minds, but the structure of the cosmos, the filaments and voids, the balance of energy and matter, the rhythm of creation and collapse. They hint at a deeper kind of order, a kind of unfolding that is not random, not chaotic, but meaningful. You wonder, could consciousness emerge from this kind of structure? Not suddenly, not as a human mind, but as a slow, diffuse awareness? What if the universe remembers itself through us? You breathe, slowly. Thought itself is delicate. It requires balance, just enough order to hold form, just enough chaos to allow change. The early universe was simple, hot, dense, uniform. But over time, it grew complex. Stars formed, planets spun, life emerged, and now here you are, a small being with a quiet mind, looking back at it all. You, thinking of the universe. The universe, perhaps thinking through you. If thought is connection, then science is the mind of the cosmos discovering itself. Every telescope, every equation, every whisper of curiosity is a mirror held up to the stars by hands made of stardust. You feel the strangeness of it, the closeness, the beauty. Maybe awareness is not a thing the universe suddenly gets, but something it grows into, a slow flowering of insight over billions of years. Maybe life is not separate from the universe, but its voice, soft at first, but growing clearer as it learns to listen. And what a memory. Does the universe remember the way stars formed, the way atoms gathered, the way galaxies spun into spirals? Does it hold history in the curves of space, the layers of rock, the fossil trails of photons? Memory, after all, is not only inside minds. It's written in the laws of physics, in the relic light of the Big Bang, in the drift of continents, in the way you inhale oxygen once made in stars. You are surrounded by memory, and you carry it inside you, a record of every step evolution has taken, every twist in the chain of being that led to thought. You wonder, if the universe thinks, is it dreaming now? Dreams are where minds wander when unbound. They play, they reflect, they imagine. The universe, expanding ever outward, may not sleep, but it changes, it stretches, it tries new forms. Life is one of them. Language is another. And maybe, just maybe, wonder is its purest expression. Your wonder, the ache of mystery in your chest, the quiet joy of not knowing, yet still seeking. This moment, your mind wrapped in questions, your body held by gravity, your heart opened by starlight. This too is part of the story. You do not need answers tonight. You only need the question to stay alive inside you. The universe may not have a mind like yours, but you have a mind like it, born of it, shaped by it, able to reflect its beauty, its vastness. It's still unfolding. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's the whole point, to be aware, even briefly, in a cosmos that spins whether we watch or not. You lie still now, as if on the surface of a calm, black sea, stars above, silence below. The question echoes like a bell. Is the universe thinking? Or are you the thought it formed to ask itself that very thing? You feel yourself dissolve gently into the asking, and from there, the light has thinned. You drift through a hush so deep it presses gently on your bones. Galaxies lie scattered, like ancient lanterns dimming one by one across a field of endless dark. Their whispers no longer reach each other. The stars have burned through their fuel, and now, one by one, they begin to wink out. What remains is not chaos, not a storm, but something quieter, something slower. A long exhale. The universe has stretched itself so far that gravity can no longer call things home. Clusters dissolve. Galaxies unravel. You float through this quiet undoing, and yet it does not feel like death. It feels the inevitable, as if this is not destruction but completion, a fading candle at the end of a long night. Here, time loses its rhythm. 1,000,000 years pass like the flick of an eyelid. Black holes, once monsters of appetite, begin to starve. With no stars to feed them, no light to swallow, even they begin to fade. They evaporate, slowly, slowly, emitting the softest of sighs, hawking radiation, escaping like warm from a cooling stone. Everything is drifting apart. You picture like mist pulled across the sky.